Welcome everybody to this complete and in-depth tutorial on XPaths, in which we will learn how to create XPaths from the most basic level to the most advanced level there is. In this tutorial, we'll first learn how to create your basic XPaths, followed by XPath with various conditions. After we have learned the basics, we will then go to the advanced level, which basically means XPath which contains functions. After we have learned all the XPaths with functions, we will then go ahead even further and learn XPath with AXES. Guys, at the end of this tutorial, you'll not only be able to understand but also create various high-level programmatic XPaths with ease. XPaths like these ones can easily be created with you with ease. Guys, if you are an automation programmer, creating XPaths should be your primary skill. Also note that this entire session will be tool independent. Having said that, for those who are using Selenium with Java, you have to put your XPath in these places right here, such as driver, find element by XPath, and place your XPath right here. For those who are using Selenium with Python, the steps will be pretty much the same, which is driver.findElement by XPath and paste your XPath right here. The similar steps will be also performed in UFT or any other programming tool there is. Guys, note that yes, the tool and the methods might differ, but the XPaths here will remain the same. Having said that, let us begin our very first basic XPath session. Let us now start creating XPaths by using a sample application in our Chrome browser. The URL of this application I will be giving in the description below, so you all can code along with me. Note that you can perform this exact same thing even in your Firefox browser, but for now we'll focus on the Chrome browser. Now with that said, press F12. That will bring up the developer console. Use your inspect tool and inspect on this element right here, which is unique ID. Now note that this application is created by me so that you all will be able to practice XPath from the very basics till your advanced level, which is below. Now this particular element which we have inspected has got an ID called as ID1. We are now going to identify this element by using XPaths with the help of its ID. So step number 1, click anywhere inside of your console and press Ctrl F. That should bring up this text box right here. This text box is used to execute your XPath or your CSS. The CSS session we will be looking into in our next session. Now with that said, press double forward slashes to start your XPath, followed by a star, and then you give your square brackets like this. Now we are going to identify a particular element with the help of its ID, right? So type in @ID followed by equal to, and inside your single quotes you type in the ID. Now if you look at the particular element, you would see that the ID is equal to ID1. So let us copy that and paste it inside of our single quotes. Now as you can see here, the element here is highlighted in yellow, which means our XPath is working. The other way to find out this is by looking at the right hand side corner, and as you can see 1 of 1, this basically means your XPath is identifying the element uniquely. Now with that said, you can either give single quotes, a double quote will also do, but as a standard practice it is better to give single quotes. Let us perform the exact same thing in your Firefox browser as well. So let me copy this XPath, go to Firefox browser, press F12. That should bring up the developer consoles, and right here in your search just paste in your XPath and hit enter. That will execute your XPath, and as you can see here 1 of 1, and if you hover over the particular element, you would see the element is highlighted in your application as well. Now going forward, we will be mostly focusing on your Chrome browser and not on your Firefox browser. Let us now go ahead and create a similar XPath for your other two elements as well, which is unique by name and unique by value. So if I just expand this, you would see the other two elements right here. So this is the other one which is having a unique name, and this is the one having a unique value. Now note that your element starts over here and ends over here, and everything inside are basically your attributes. So ID here is an attribute, name here is an attribute, value is an attribute. Basically anything inside of your tags is an attribute. So we are basically uniquely identifying your first element by using the ID. We will now change this for our second element by using the name. So at the rate name is equal to your name1, and as you can see that works as well. In the third example we will now do at the rate value is equal to value1, and as you can see that works as well. So with this we will now learn a very basic XPath syntax, which is like this. So at the start of an XPath you basically give your double forward slashes, which basically means finding an element anywhere in your HTML page. We will then give we'll then give a star followed by at the rate attribute. So your attribute, as I said, it can be anything at all which is inside of your brackets, and then we set it equal to a particular value. Note that the value will always be in single or double quotes, and this entire XPath will be put inside of your square brackets. This is the basic syntax of an XPath. We will now encounter our very first issue when using this particular syntax. So let me open up Chrome and let us now try to identify your next two elements, which is element 1 and element 2, which is basically these two elements, as you can see. The problem here is these two elements have got a class, but the value of your classes is basically the same for both of my elements. So if I were to copy at the rate class is equal to class1, you notice that at the right hand side you would see one of two elements. So if I press one of these arrows, it will basically navigate to the other element. So this is your second element, this is your first element. So your XPath is not able to identify something uniquely. So how do we take care of this issue? Now as you can see in both of these elements, your tag is different. For your very first element, your tag is a p tag or your paragraph tag, and for your element 2, it is a div tag. So you can specify your tags instead of your star. So star basically means any tag. So when you put star, it will search any element having the attribute called class, which is equal to class1. But if you specify the tag like the tag p having the class1, it will point to only one element right here. And if I were to change this tag to div, it will then point to the second element right here. So the syntax will change like this. Instead of giving your star, you can also give your tag to specifically say that you want a particular XPath having a particular tag and the necessary condition inside of it. Let us now look at a different problem in XPath and learn how to solve that as well. So open up your application, and when you scroll down, you will be able to view these four elements right here. Now all of these four elements are present in your HTML right here. Now all of them have got your p tag and none of them have got a common attribute. Example, your very first and second element has got a common name. Your third and fourth also has got a common name b. Same way if you look at the ID is common between your first and third as well as your second and fourth. So if I were to identify this by using, let's say, the name, so let me just zoom in here. So double slash means anywhere in the web page. I'm identifying an element having a p tag and having the name attribute equal to the value a. And as you can see, I'm identifying two different elements. Now this can easily be resolved by uniquely identifying an element with the help of the name as well as the ID. Basically, I'm combining two different attributes together. You can do this by using the AND operator. So simply type in your first attribute or your first condition, and then you type in A and D and then you give your other attribute, which is at the rate ID is equal to A. This basically means that I'm finding any any element having a p tag which has the attributes name is equal to A and ID is equal to A. And as you can see, it is uniquely identified. If I change the ID from A to B, as you can see, it now points to the second element, which works as well. It is not just the AND operator, you can also perform your OR operator as well. So in this case, it is it is identifying three different elements. Why? Because it is any element having the name is equal to A, which is basically two different elements, or having the ID is equal to B. Now with that said, it is not just two attributes, you can combine more than two as well. So name is equal to A or ID is equal to B, and or you can also put an OR condition here and give your third attribute as well, and that will work just fine. Now this can get a bit confusing, so what you can do is you can put a parenthesis to separate the two and make things a bit easier. So this brings us to our next syntax in XPath, which is if you have two or more than two conditions or attributes, you can give an AND condition so that they both should match in order for the element to be uniquely identified. You can also give the OR condition or combine more than one conditions with the help of your parentheses. So far we have learned how to identify a particular element by using the attributes. We can also do this by using the text as well. Example, let me open up the application again and let me take any element right here. Example, this one which has got the unique ID. So if I spy on it, you would see that it has got the text called as unique ID. And if I were to copy the particular text, I can easily identify this in the following manner. So any element having the p tag, give your square brackets, but this time do not give @ because @ is used to specify an attribute. You simply have to do text and your parentheses. This basically is a function in XPath which returns the text of any element in your web page. So this XPath right here means I'm finding any element in my web page which basically has my p tag and has got a text. I can then say the text is equal to a particular value, which is this one right here, unique ID. And as you can see that you are getting one of one element, or it is uniquely identified. In this case, if it was not uniquely identified, you could have combined this again by using your AND or your OR operator and combining it with an attribute, and that would work fine. For example, @ID is equal to ID1, and as you see it is still found because that works as well. Let us now look at a different problem where your child or your parent is unique and you want to find the other. So what do I mean by this? So let me open up the application again, and if you scroll down you will be able to view a text called as when your child is unique. So just spy on the particular link and you will know what I mean. So in this particular case, you want to identify the particular anchor tag uniquely, but as you can see, it does not have any unique attribute. But the child here has got a unique attribute, which is ID is equal to link. So what do I mean by a child? As you can see, this is an anchor tag and there is an arrow right here. So the moment I expand the arrow, as you can see, the span is basically inside of this particular tag, and therefore span is a child of the anchor tag, or in other words, the anchor tag is a parent of span. You can say it either ways. So in this particular example, let me just zoom in here. Okay, let me again identify this. So in this example, we will try to identify an anchor tag by using the child. So step number one is identifying this particular span tag, span element here. So span having ID is equal to link. So let me copy the attribute link. So /span your square brackets @ID is equal to link. And in this way you have identified the child uniquely. Now to identify the parent, you only have to do a / followed by two dots. In this way you're traversing from the child to the parent. In this way we have identified the parent uniquely. Now you can perform this once, you can perform this twice as well. In this case it'll go from the parent to the parent, and if you keep doing this over and over again, you might basically reach the head or the HTML tag as well. So with that said, we look at the other example where your parent is unique but the child is not. So in this example, let's say I want to enter text in this text box, and as you can see, this text box does not have any unique attribute, but the parent here, which is div, has got a unique attribute which is id is equal to div a. So again, step number one would be uniquely identifying the parent. In this case, it is div having the id div a. So let me make a few changes. Instead of span, it is going to be a div having the id is equal to div a. And now to traverse from the parent to the child, you only have to do a forward slash and a star. Star basically means, again, as we have learned earlier, it means any tag whatsoever which is a parent, sorry, which is a child of this element right here. But guys, in my experience, it is not a good habit to give star. Try to be more specific to make your XPaths more robust. So here I would encourage you to use the tag which you can see in the console below. So here I'll give input. So this is more robust. Again, even in div you can give a star, but I again prefer not to give stars for your tags, but to give the tags themselves. Now looking much more in depth in this example, if you take this one right here, which is id is equal to div c, you see that inside div you have a span, and inside of the span you have an input. So it is not directly the child, but you can say is the descendant. So how to handle this? So one way to handle this is, so div having the id has div c. Inside of this you basically have a span, and inside of the span you have an input. So in this way you can not only traverse to the child but to the child's child as well, which basically means you're going to the descendant. An easier way to take care of this is basically giving a double slash. So whenever in HTML you give a double slash, or sorry, whenever in XPath you give a double slash, it basically means anywhere inside. Now your first double slash does not have anything before it, so it means anywhere inside of your HTML page. But if you're doing double forward slash over here, it basically means inside of this element right here, or basically anywhere inside. So you do not need to give slash span slash input. You can just give double forward slash input and that will work just fine. So in this way we have learned that by giving two double dots we are traversing to the parent, and by giving slash and then you giving your tag, you basically are going to the child. We will now look at the next topic, which is identification with the help of the indexes. Now this should only be used when none other identification technique works. So let us look at an example from before in which we had two elements having the same attribute, which is your name is equal to A. So let me just do that, double forward slash paragraph with @name is equal to the value A. And as you can see, I'm getting two elements right here. This is the first and this is the second. Now in order for me to identify the very first element, I can easily do that by giving the indexes. The first element can be found by using a square brackets and giving the value 1, and the second as simple by giving the value 2. Now that said, there is a major issue here which very few actually know, and that is this. When you're giving indexes, these indexes basically specify the child. So what I mean is, this element here is a second child to its parent, and this here, sorry, this is the first child and this is the second child of the parent. Now this might be a bit difficult to understand, so let us look at a different example, which is this one right here. Now div here has only one child called label1, and the next div has got only one child called as label2. So there are two labels over here, okay, and each one is a first child of its parent. So in the exact same manner, if I were to find double forward slash label having at the rate id is equal to this label right here, you'd see that I'm getting 3 elements, right? But in this case, if I do give the index as 1, I can still view 3 elements only. Why is that? Because all of my 3 elements are my first child of the parent div. So index is a bit complicated. Just because you see 3 elements over here, that does not mean that the very first will mean your first and then second will mean second. It does not work like that. So in this case, if I give 2, you'll basically get 0 because you do not have any label which is your second child. So in this case, how are you going to work around? To do a workaround, you simply have to encapsulate the entire element in a bracket. This basically means this entire element is present in the web page 3 times, and then you give your square brackets with the value 1, with the value 2, and with the value 3. We remove this, come back here. A quick note guys, all of the XPaths that we have written till now are starting with a double forward slash. This means that it is a relative XPath, or in other words, we are searching for the particular element anywhere inside of your web page. The opposite of this is an absolute XPath. This is something which I will never recommend anyone to use, but for the sake of interviews and knowledge, let me tell you what that is. So you open up your Chrome browser and choose any element. For example, let me inspect on this button. Right click on the particular button, and you can get this created automatically for you by choosing the option called as copy your full XPath. And let me paste it right here. Now, as you can see, this XPath here is pretty long, right? And if you look at it very clearly, and if you go towards the left, you will see that it is basically starting from HTML, and then it goes towards the body, and then div, and then div. Basically, we are going through each and every element from the page, all the way from your HTML till the element that we are looking for. So this element here is a span. If I remove out the span, you can see the span's parent, which is your div. If I go one level back, it's a button. And if I keep on going back all the way till the end, what we basically reach is, we scroll on top, we will be reaching the HTML itself. So this here guys is an example of your absolute XPath. And as you can see, it is pretty long, and if any element in here changes, that is, you have got so many elements here in your entire XPath, if any element changes, your XPath will also change. So do not use your absolute XPath. Please stick to your relative XPaths only. So guys, for those who are watching the video till this particular point, a bonus for you all, we'll look at a very advanced topic in XPaths, which is identification of an element by using another element as an attribute. So what do I mean by this? Now if you look at any examples in XPaths, your attributes of an element are basically attributes itself. But it need not be an attribute. You can also give a different element as well. Let us take the previous example of the link. Now in the link, the parent was not unique, but the child was unique. So in this case, I can identify the parent by giving the child as an attribute. Now it might seem complicated, but it is not. So step number 1 is uniquely identifying the child here. So this is a span having the ID link, right? So let me write this pretty quick. So double forward slash span having the ID is equal to link. Here we go. So our child is identified uniquely. Now let me just copy this span here and remove this. Now next is I want to identify this link here. So this is a link. So this here is a link. So it's an anchor tag. So double forward slash a, and then you give your square brackets. But this time, instead of giving attributes, you paste in the element itself. So in this way, as you can see, the element is uniquely identified. So here I'm trying to identify an anchor tag having an attribute which is the child of that particular element itself, which is this one right here. Now this is a bit advanced, but it is good to know this because you might have your seniors or your colleagues implementing this and you'll be like, hey, what's up? This is something which I do not know. The other thing is, if your span here is not directly the child but it's a descendant, for example A, in that you have a span, in that you have something else, you can do that as well by simply performing a dot and then your double forward slashes. The dot here is very important. The dot specifies that you are searching directly inside of your anchor tag. If you do not give a dot, it will basically search in your entire HTML page. So everyone, with this we have successfully finished your first part of this tutorial, in which we all have learned how to create your XPath from your basic to your advanced level. We will now be focusing on a much more advanced level of XPath, which is basically functions inside of your XPath. In this tutorial we will be going with a total of 13 different functions. We will start with the very first one, which is contains. Let us now try to understand your contains function with the help of an example. So open up your Chrome browser to the sample application. The link I will be giving in the description. You scroll all the way down to this particular element right here. The moment you click on random, you see the particular message is changing. Now in all of your messages, this part of the text which is has logged in successfully is always constant, whereas your starting and your ending is always changing. Now, I cannot uniquely identify this element based on text alone because the text is not constant. So what I can do is I can use your contains function and uniquely identify this based on a partial match. So the steps to do this is going to be the following. Create a normal XPath. So Control F, double forward slash. This here is having a paragraph tag right here. So P followed by your square brackets. Now what you would usually do is you would type text, your parentheses, and then you give your text. But this is only going to do an exact match. What you want to do is a partial match. So for that you use your new function called as contains. So contains, and then you give your parentheses. Your contains guys is going to have two parameters. So put a comma, your first parameter here and your second parameter here. Your first parameter is going to decide where do you want your match to take place, whether it is an attribute, for example @ID is an attribute, or it is an text. So in our case for now we are going to uniquely identify based on partial match of a text, right? So we are going to give here text and then your parentheses. Your second parameter is going to be what do you want to search inside of the text. So I want this particular part of the text to be verified, which is has logged in successfully. So give that as your second parameter, and as you can see, it searches the text based on a partial match. Now in a similar condition, you can not only just search your text, but it can be a parameter as well. So if I scroll above and I come to this example right here, which is unique ID, as I can see, the ID here is ID 1. So instead of text, I can just type here @ID because I want to this time not search for the text but search for the ID. And instead of giving the entire ID, which is ID 1, it will work even if I give a partial ID such as D1, and that matches as well. So again guys, you can basically verify the partial match of anything, attributes or text, inside of your application with the help of your contains function. The other thing is your contains function is not standalone. You can combine contains with attributes as well. For example, if I wanted to combine contains with a text match, then I would just do contains your ID is having D1 and a text having this text right here. I can even combine attributes as well. It is all okay. There are basically no issues by using contains. Now a similar function to contains is also called as starts with. So let us come back to our previous example. Now if I were to just change the time, you would see that the starting part of the text which is logged in successfully is always constant, only the ending is changing. So for this example, you can again do the exact same thing as before, which is, let me remove this particular piece of code here. So contains a text having the value logged in successfully, and it works. But this would not be a right approach because in XPaths you try to be as precise as possible. So because your starting is always the same, only your ending is changing, what you can do is instead of contains, you can use a function called as starts with. So starts starts, a hyphen and with, and that will work just fine. So you have to use starts with when your starting part of your text or any attribute is constant, and use contains when only a partial match is possible. So in this way we have looked at contains as well as starts with. Let us look at the other three functions right now. Let us now look at your other three functions with the help of a different example. So you open up Chrome and you navigate to this different example here. The link again I will be giving in the description below. Now this web page over here has got a web table. Now if you spy on the web table, you would see that it has got a tag called has table with the ID is equal to table 1. So let me write an XPath to identify this web table. So // table with the attribute ID is equal to table 1, and that identifies the table uniquely. Now if you look at it closely, inside of the table you have got a body and then you have got a TR. Now the moment I hover over TR, it basically is highlighting my very first row. So TR over here basically means rows. So TR, TR, TR. It basically means that I've got 6 rows in my web table. So if I were to just do /TR, as you can see on my right hand side corner, 1 of 6. So this is my first row, my second, third, fourth, and so on and so forth. Now if I wanted to uniquely identify my first row, I can just give a square brackets like this and specify the number 1. So this is my first row, my second, third. Now guys, here I'm saying rows because I'm working on the web table. But in reality it is what? It is that I've got 6 instances of my TR element, and I am verifying, or I'm getting my first instance, my second, my third, my fourth, my fifth, and then my sixth. Now you can give your indexes either by giving in a square brackets, or you can use your position function to do the same. So POSITR position followed by your parentheses, and then you give your position value. So this is my position 1 or my row 1, and so on and so forth. Now let us look at a real life example here as well. What if you had a condition where you had to get the values of your very last row? Now here I can easily do that because I know the total number of rows is 6. So I give the value 6. But what if the number of rows was not fixed? It was not static. Today it's 6, tomorrow it's 7, and so on and so forth. Then that can cause a problem, right? In this case, you can just use a function called as last. So type last followed by your parentheses, and it will always point to your very last index. As you can see here, it is pointing to my last index right here. Now I can take this a bit step further. Your last index over here, your last row points to this particular row TR. Inside TR I've got a TD, and inside TD I have a checkbox. So if I just do /TD/input, you can see it verifies or it is pointing to the checkbox. So this can be my use case. I want to check or to delete my very last row, and this is going to be the XPath. In order to delete my second last row, I can just use last -1, and this will point to my second last, third last, and so on and so forth. The same thing can be done by indexes as well. I can give 1, I can give 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, and so on and so forth. I can give mathematical expressions inside of these parentheses as well. Okay, now with that said, let us look at a different example now, which is count. Now count is something which is not used usually in XPath, but if you know how to use it, it will save you a lot of coding in your actual Selenium or whichever function tool that you're using. So what is count? Count is going to give you the total number of instances of an element found. So let me come back to my application. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. So if I just do count and I give the XPath of rows, it will return for me the value 6. So it can be used in a particular manner. What if I had this box here, and this box has got 2 buttons? So I want to get a particular box that has got only 2 buttons. I can use the function count. In the same example of a web table, let us verify a web table that has got only 6 rows. Okay, so let me remove off all of these values here. So we are going to identify a table, but not by the ID, but by using the function called as count. So table, and then you give the function count, and inside of this you have to specify the XPath of the element which you want to count. So you will start with a dot because you want to search inside of your web table. Notice that moment I put a dot, table here is getting highlighted. So always start with a dot. If you do not give a dot, it will search anywhere in your web page again. So always use a dot. So I want to search what inside my web table. I want to search for all tr instances. Okay. Now this is basically going to return for me a particular value which is basically 6. So I'll say that I want to find a web table having total number of tr elements which is equal to 6. And as you can see, I've uniquely identified the particular web table right here having only 6 rows. So congratulations everybody for making through the second round. We will now go through our third phase in which we'll look at more 7 functions in XPath. We'll also look at how to identify various elements by using attributes by ignoring its case as well as spaces if they are present inside of it. We will now learn how to ignore spaces in your XPath with the help of an example. So open up your Firefox or Chrome browser to this website. The link I will be giving in the description below. You navigate all the way till the end till you get this particular element here called as not logged in, and you click on this button here. The text of the element will now change to Tommy. Right click on the particular text and choose inspect, and that will tell you the details of the particular element. It is a paragraph tag having the text called as Tommy. So let us now write an XPath by using the text. So this is a paragraph tag having the text which is equal to the value Tommy. Now guys, I want you to click on this button here called as preceding spaces, and the moment you do that in your console you'll now notice that there is a space right before your text. And now if you notice, the X part does not work because there is a space. If you put a space in your text, that will work, but without the spaces it is not going to work, right? So basically your XPath is dependent on spaces. Now how to make it independent of spaces, how to ignore spaces? Now that can be done by using the function called as your normalize space. So let us first understand what this function does. So guys, the moment you use a function normalize space and you pass a text inside of it, for example, let us use a text called as ABC. Okay, and as you can see, both the text ABC has got spaces before as well as after. So I'm using the function normalize space. I'm giving a text inside of it, and the output is going to be the same text without any preceding or trailing spaces. So this is going to be ABC. Okay, now note that if you have a space in between, that space is not removed. So if you have text like this, space ABC space C space, your output is going to be ABC space C. Okay, it is only going to remove your preceding and your trailing spaces only. Now with that said, what do you want to do in our case? My text over here is basically the text function. Okay, now the text over here is basically the text called Tommy. So moment I pass the text over here, it is going to remove the preceding and trailing spaces, and the output is going to be just Tommy without any spaces. Let me just put your single quotes here, and now let me replace this with your function inside of your brackets. And as you can see, it works now and it is ignoring all of your spaces. Let me just remove all of this. So now it is not just ignoring preceding spaces. If I do trailing spaces, you can see it still works. Even with preceding and trailing, that is spaces before and after, it will still work. So in this case, so in this particular manner, by using the function called as normalize-space, you can ignore spaces inside of your text. Now it is not just text, this can be done by using attributes as well. For example, this name attribute here, just remove the XPath here. Okay, this name attribute over here has got double A, right? Now what if I had spaces in my A, right? So that would not work if you just do something like @id is equal to double A. This is not going to work because your attribute has got spaces before and after. In this case, you can perform the exact same thing by using this technique. So normalize space, but this time not text, right? You need to use your parameter called name. So @name, and the value is a value without your spaces, which is basically double A. Let me put my bracket, and as you can see, that works as well. So in this way, you can use attributes, you can use text, and identify them by ignoring the spaces. Now that we have learned how to ignore spaces, we'll now learn how to ignore or make your XPath case insensitive or ignore the cases. This can easily be achieved by using your translate function, also called as your replace function. Let us first understand how this works. So let me open up Notepad++ and paste this translate function. Your function translate basically has got three parameters. Your first parameter is going to be the string in which you want to perform your replace action. Your second parameter is going to be the parameter which you want to find and replace. So let me write it as str1. And your third parameter is going to be the string by which you want to replace. So let me write it as str2. Now let's take a better example with this. Let's say I had a string called as ABCD, okay, and I wish to replace the I wish to replace the letter B with the letter X, like this. Then in this case, my output is going to be A X C D, okay, because the letter B is replaced with the letter X. In this similar example, if I wish to replace two letters, that's let's say the letter B and the letter D, then I will have to give B and T, like this. Yes guys, although you give it as a string, okay, the function reads each character at a time. So the letter B will be replaced with the letter X, and the letter D here will be replaced currently with nothing at all. So I better give it a value which is Y. Now with this particular condition in place, my letter B is replaced with X and my letter D here is replaced with the letter Y. Now using this same example, I can now convert any text into from a uppercase to a lowercase. So what do I mean? If I wish, let the text be any text, okay? So any text, it does not matter. And if I replace all uppercase letters such as A, B, C, D all the way till the end, which is Z, so I'm replacing all of these characters with all the smaller case characters such as A, B, C, D all the way till the last character Z, and yes, you have to manually type it out. Then what I get is let me write here the capital any text. So what I get is basically all my uppercase characters will be converted into my lowercase characters, which is going to be any text, but this time in the smaller case. Now using this exact same approach, let us now write our XPath and make it case insensitive. So let me open up the application and use this translate function. So I'm opening up the application. In this application, as you can see, I have got two buttons here, lowercase and uppercase. And by typing it, as you can see, the text is changing from lowercase to uppercase. So let me remove all of this function inside your p tag and put inside here your translate function. Now as you have learned earlier, your translate function accepts three parameters and the output is basically the text which is all replaced, right? And you want to replace text to be equal to what? To be equal to the text called as Tommy, right? But you want it all to be converted to a lowercase. So translate is equal to the text called as Tommy and everything here is in lowercase. Now what do you want to translate? Tommy here is what? It's a text, right? So you want to convert the text into a lowercase So you want to convert all uppercase characters to a lowercase character, right? So you know, type in everything from A to Z right here. I already have done that right here. So let me copy your characters A to Z in uppercase and paste it here. So all of your uppercase characters will be converted into all lowercase characters. And as you can see, it's a perfect match. Now even if your text is converted to an uppercase, you will see that it still matches. Here we go. It is still a match. Let us look at one more thing. If I choose the option called as no space, here only T is in capital, rest all is in lowercase. Even in that case, it will still match because it is converting each and every character of text from an uppercase to a lowercase and is matching it with your current text, which is Tommy. So it will work. Now with that said, let us look at a much more complicated example. What if you want to combine both? What if you wish to make a particular XPath which is both case insensitive as well as it ignores spaces? Let us look at that right now. To achieve this, you simply have to combine both of your functions together, which basically is your first function, which is translate, which will be used to convert your uppercase characters to a lowercase characters, and then we'll be performing the function called as normalize-space to remove all of your leading and trailing white spaces. So let's look first at the translate function. So in this function, you basically want to work with the text, and in your text you want to replace all of your uppercase characters, which is A to Z, and convert them into all lowercase characters of A to Z. And once you're done with that, you basically want to copy this function and paste it inside of your normalize space function. So what is this going to do? Let me just put a few spaces here. Your function will first convert your text from uppercase to a lowercase, and then it will then be passed to your normalize space function, which will remove all of your leading and trailing white spaces. So what you are ending up with is basically text which is all lowercase and does not have any spaces. So if I type here something called as Tommy, this is going to work for all cases, that is uppercase, lowercase, as well as spaces. So let me copy this particular function and paste this function inside of my XPath. So this is a function. Let me remove this and paste the one which we have just created. And as you can see, it is identifying the text called Tommy right here, which has got the leading and trailing white spaces, as well as T here is in caps. And this basically is going to work for everything, whether it's uppercase, whether it's lowercase, whether it's trailing white spaces. As you can see, the XPath works fine. So in this way, you have achieved a very complicated XPath which is both case insensitive as well as your space insensitive. So it's time to have a quick recap. The very first thing we learn is normalize space, which basically is going to remove your leading and trailing white spaces as seen here. The example is also mentioned. The next thing we learn is your translate function, which basically is used to replace your text, as you can see ABCD, with AC replaced as XY, and therefore you get the output as XBYD. Now with all this done, we'll now look at your other functions as well. Let us quickly go through each one of these functions, starting with your string length. String length is going to return for you the total number of characters which are present in a particular string. Now in this given example or in this given application, you can see you have got many paragraph tags. All of these are paragraphs, and all of them, some of them have got less characters and some of them have got more characters. So what if you want to find only those paragraphs which have got 30 characters or more, something like that? You can do that by using the function string length. So let us perform that right now. So what I'll do here is I will remove off this particular code from application. So I'm finding a paragraph which has got string length. String length of what? String length of the text. Okay, so and I want the length of this particular text to be greater than 30. And as you can see, I have got 10 elements in my web page, which are all paragraphs, which all have text, and their length of the text is greater than 30 characters. If I were to reverse this, which is less than 30, you see that I've got 15 such paragraphs which have got either 30 characters, which have got less than 30 characters in your web page right here. Now we look at the other two, which is floor and round. Now these are very important functions from the point of view of dealing with numbers. So let's take a particular web page which has got a lot of numbers. For example, your stock exchange. So stock exchange. You can open any website, it would not matter. This does not have a lot of numbers. Let me take a different website. Okay, this has got a lot of numbers here. So let's say that you want to identify a text based on you want to identify a particular element based on its text, like this one right here, 53.80. So right click on it and choose inspect. And as you can see, this particular thing is a TD tag having the value 53.30. Let me quickly write the XPath of this. So /TD having the text which is equal to 53.80. Now guys, the problem with this is in applications like this, your text keeps changing very frequently. But if you know that the value is not going to be changed by much, you have an option of not giving the exact value but giving off a round of value. For example, 53.80 can be converted to 54 if you perform a round function on your text. So what I'll do here is I'll use round, R-O-U-N-D, round, and put my text function inside of the round function. And as you can see, that also identifies your text. A similar function like round is called as your flow function, and as the name suggests, it is not going to round off to your higher or lower, but it will always round off to the lowermost value. So let me go back to the application here. So in this case, 53.80 will turn to 53 like this if I choose a function called as floor, F-L-O-O-R, and as you see, that works as well. So in this way, you can use your floor or your round function to deal with numbers and your string length to deal with total characters in your string. Let us have a quick look at your next function, which is your not function here, and this is the most easiest functions to learn in XPath. So we'll open up our previous application, which is your XPath practice. The link again guys I will be giving in the description. You scroll down to the element area of radio buttons. Now we'll try to identify this radio button of male uniquely, and as you can see here, this is an input having the type called radio and the ID called gender0. So let us write a quick XPath for this. So /input having the type, so at the rate type is equal to radio, and having an ID equal to gender0. Okay, I have misplaced the quote here. There we go. And as you can see, 1 of 1, the element is unique. The other thing to note is if I remove this second parameter called gender0, as you can see, it is giving me two particular elements over here. One is a male and the other is a female. And the moment I put this attribute again using the AND, it is pointing specifically to the male. Now, this XPath basically states that it needs to be a radio button and it needs to have the gender 0. Now by using your not function, I can change the entire meaning of your XPath. I can say the exact opposite. I can say that it needs to be a radio button and it does not need to be having your gender 0. So the moment you put this in your parentheses, it is now not going to point to the male, but it will point to the female radio button. And this is the way we use your not function. Okay guys, we have reached the last topic for today, which is substring. After this topic, we'll talk about your XPath access. Now with that said, let us come back to substring. So to explain this, let us have an example. Open up your application again. You scroll down to this particular text. Now guys, if you're not able to view this text, simply click random and the text will be generated for you. Now with that said, your first function is substring-after or substring-before. Okay, so if this here is a text, okay, and I give the function call as substring-after, and I give this text as well, which is your codes, then the output will be 10 am, because this is a text, this is a value, and substring-after is 10 am. In the same way, if this is a text and I give your double quotes again, and then I say substring before, then the text that comes before will be the output. Let us try to understand this with an example in XPath itself. So here what I'll do here is, let me spy this. This is a paragraph tag, so /p, okay, and let me type here substring, so sub, okay, I forgot the syntax, it is string, substring, right? So substring, give a hyphen, and then write before or after. Let me write after first, so substring-after, and then in your parentheses you have to give two parameters. Your first parameter is going to be what substring are you looking at. So I want the substring of the text, okay, and then specify where do you want to divide this string at. So I want to divide the string at my double quotes, right? So once you're done with that, this is going to return for you a particular value, okay, and if I say that particular value should be equal to this text right here, is equal to 10 am, as you can see it is identified uniquely, okay. If I were to say substring before, okay, in that case I need to give the text that comes before my double quotes, before my colon, sorry. So let me now replace the text with this one right here, and as you can see that is also verified successfully. So in this way you can use your substring. I personally have not used substrings before, but again it is always a good thing to know each and every aspect of your XPath. So in this way I guess we have covered all of the functions. We have covered your normalize space, your translate, as well as your flow function. Now in our next session we'll be talking about your XPath accesses. So congratulations everybody for finishing your first 3 stages in your XPath development, and I'm sure you all can create really good XPaths till now. Now going forward in stage 4, we'll learn more about your XPath access, and this is going to be a bit more complicated. We'll also be combining your XPath access with all of your previous functions and methods. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So guys, like all of our previous sessions, we are not going to go into the definition and the theory of what an XPath access is. Instead, we look into the code and try to understand this ourselves. So to start with, you can either open up your Firefox or your Chrome browser and navigate to this website. The link I will be giving in the description below. So you scroll all the way down till this particular element over here called as XPath access inspect me. So you can press F12 and inspect that particular element. Now what I've done here is I've gone ahead and created a whole complicated list of web elements such that it is very complicated, and that will help you understand the benefits of your XPath access. So this particular element over here consists of a div with the ID A. Now inside of your ID A, you basically have got 1, 2, 3, 4 children, and they all have the ID called as B1, B2, B3 and B4. If you open up the very first one, it also has got 3 children. Your second element here has got 3 children as well, and the third has got 2 children. Your fourth div does not have any children at all. Now if you come on top to the children of B1, you would see that your x1 and x2 are basically alone, but your x2 here has got children of its own. As you can see, it has got O1, and inside of it you have got Q1 and then R1. Now I know that this is getting pretty hard for you to understand, so I've gone ahead and taken this and represented this in a graphical format in your PowerPoint presentation. So here we go. This is exactly the same thing that you had seen in your HTML, where you have an element with the ID A, and that basically has got 4 children, which is B1, B2, B3 and B4. So guys, this is pretty much the exact same thing, and with the help of this diagram and our HTML right here, we will right now perform a few XPath access and better understand the benefits of it as well. Let us learn our first access for today, which is your parent access. And as the name suggests, it basically means you're one level up. So guys, if you're currently working on the web element with the ID y2, and if you give parent, it will take you one level up and now it will point to b2. Let us look at this practically in our application. We'll now find the element having the ID y2. So I'm opening up Chrome and inspecting this. I'm giving the XPath for the particular element. So /div having the ID is equal to y2. And as you can see, the element is present right here, and it is exactly same, such that y1, y2 and y3, they all are children of the parent b2. Exactly same right here, y1, y2, y3, and the parent is b2. We will now write our access, which is you first give a / followed by the name of the access, which is parent, parent, and then you give a colon and one more colon, and then you give the tag of your parent. The tag of a parent here is div, right? So you give div, div, and as you can see, the parent is highlighted right here. Now you can either give div or you can give a star. Star basically means any tag, and in this case it would not matter because your parent would be only one. Okay, now this is exactly same as tutorial number 1, in which we are done the / followed by your double dot, and that will point to the parent as well. So guys, most of the time we do not use the access parent, but we'll be using your double dots because that is much more convenient and much more easy. So that is done with your parent access. We will now look at your ancestor access. So as you see guys, unlike your parent where your scope was limited only to one particular element, by using ancestor, the scope is now extended to a whole range of elements, which is basically your parent, your parent's parent, and their parent, and all the way to your very top. In our case, this is going to be your HTML tag itself. So why is this helpful? So let us look at a practical example here. Let me go to Chrome, and this time instead of typing parent, let me now type your ancestor. So ancestor, and as you can see here, it has got total of 24 elements right here. Now let us take for example that I wanted to identify this particular element here called as div with the ID called as a. If you look at our if you look at our PowerPoint presentation, I mean this element right here. I want to uniquely identify this. Okay, let us come back to Chrome. Let me copy this for now and save it. So if I just do / div having the ID is equal to the ID A, you will see that I've got total of 2 elements found, which is these two ones right here. So they are not unique, right? Now a good way to find if something is unique is that you can just say that I would like to find the ID of an element which is A, but it is also the ancestor of the element y2. Okay, so I want to find the ancestor of the element y2 who also has the ID equal to A. And by this particular approach, you will not be getting 2 elements, but you will be getting just one element. So what we'll do here is we'll go back to our previous code. Here we go. So div, okay, we are finding the element y2. We are finding out all of its ancestors, but this time we do not want all of the ancestors. So let us remove the star. We want a specific ancestor which has got the tag called div, and it has got the ID which is equal to the letter A. And right now if you see that it doesn't give me two elements, but it just provides me one element which is unique, which is this one right here, because this element is not an ancestor of our, it is of a particular element called as y2. So y2's ancestor is this one right here, div with the id a, and not the other one. So this is a practical example where you might be using your ancestor tag. Let us come back over here. So now we're done with ancestor. Let us look at ancestor or self. This basically just means that your range is now including the element itself. So here y2 is not included, but in this case y2 will also be included. The next one is child. So guys, I don't think I need to explain what a child is. So if b2 is an element, then y1, y2 and y3 are the three children of your b2 element. So if I go back to my application and I give, instead of y2, if I give here b2, and instead of ancestor, if I type here child followed by a colon and one more colon and then a star, you would see that it has got three children, which is y1, y2 and y3, which is exactly as you can see right here. Now usually you would never specify children in this particular manner. What people usually do is they just give a single forward slash and then they specify a star like this, and that works as well. Okay, you can either give a star or you can also specify the exact tag of your element. For example, if it's a div, then you type a div. If you want a specific div using index, you can give your index as 1, index as 2 and your index as 3 as well. So with that done, we'll go to our next axis, which is descendant. Now this basically means the same thing, but not just your child but all of their children and their children as well. Now as you can see here, if I take b2 tag and I give descendant, it will basically show me 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 elements underneath it. So let me go back to my application and I'll do forward slash and I'll type descendant, DECENDANT, a colon and then I'll give a star. Okay, I think I made a spelling mistake. DECENDANT. Here we go. And right now you can see it has got 8 elements. I think I counted it wrong. So these are all of my 8 elements, which are the descendant of the tag b2. Now again, people would not usually type it in this particular manner. The easier way would be just to type a double forward slash. So double forward slash and a star would work as well. Now again, you can either give a star or you can give a specific element stack, for example div having the id is equal to, let's say, m2. That would be more precise. You can either type in there or you can type it by using your descendant tag, and instead of star you type in descendant having a div with the id is equal to m2, and that will work as well. But usually I would not go with this particular XPath access and simply just go with your double forward slash, cause that is much more simpler. Here we go. So now we're done with descendant. We'll now look at what do you mean by following, and this is the most common questions that are asked in interviews. So this might be a bit complicated. So guys, to understand what do you mean by following, you need to draw an imaginary line that goes through all of your ancestors. So what do I mean by this? Let us look at a different diagram, which is this one right here. So if you're working on the element b2, b2's parent is a and a's parent is body and body's parent is x. So if you draw an imaginary line that goes through all of these elements, all the elements that come to the left hand side of this particular imaginary line will be excluded, and all the elements that come to the right of this line will be included. Now this makes things a bit complicated. Let us look at a real life example to understand this. We will try to find the following elements of the element b2. So open up the application. So here we have got identify the element called as b2. We will now do a forward slash followed by sibling. So one thing to note is b2 is this element right here. Okay, now if I talked about following, it means all the elements that come underneath it. So b3, all the elements inside b3, before, all the elements inside before, followed by br, this br, scripts, everything inside your scripts. Basically all the elements that come after b2 is your following. Okay, now let us look at this practically. So a forward slash followed by following, following, and then your colon and your colon again, and let me just type star so that we get to see all of the elements like this. So here we go, we have got total of 236 elements. Let us just go through a few of them. Here we go, b3, the elements inside b3. Here we got b4, and then your br, your scripts, you got your div, and so on and so forth. Basically it is going through all the elements which is below the particular element called as b2. So in this way, this is very helpful in case you are very sure that a particular element has got common properties which are to your left and to your right, and you know exactly where it comes. Let us now look at the next example, which is very similar, which is your following sibling. So this is similar to your previous example, but this is specific to only one level, which is your sibling level. So what do I mean by siblings? So if you look at this diagram, you would see that the element A here has got 4 children, which is B1, B2, B3 and B4. So if you're looking at the element B2 and you're talking about following siblings, you're looking at only that particular hierarchy only, and following means towards your right hand side. So you've got two elements, B2 and B3. Let us see this exact same thing in our application. Here we go. So if you're looking at B2, you're only concerned about the elements at the same level and the elements that come after it, which is B3 and B4. The elements which are inside this will not be counted. So following, then a hyphen followed by sibling, sibling. And as you can see, there are two elements found, which is B3 and B4. So guys, your next two XPath accesses are pretty much similar. Your next one is preceding, which is the exact opposite of following. And then you have your preceding sibling, which is again the exact opposite of your following sibling. We'll not go into that right now. We'll now look at how can we implement these XPath accesses in your actual day-to-day automation activities. So let us look at a real life example where maybe it will be helpful. So let me open up the same example and let me scroll about to something which I usually observe is in your applications you might have text boxes like this. You have a label and then you have a text box, right? So let me spy on this, and as you can see here that you have a label here, and right underneath the label you have a div, and inside of the div you have an input, and this pretty much stays consistent over all of the other elements as well. So what usually you would do is to identify the particular text box. You have to spy on it each and every time, and that is a waste of time. So instead what we'll do here is we are going to identify the text box by using the label. Okay, and that can be done by using following siblings as we have given right here. So step number one is identifying the element, this particular label, by using the text, right? So the element here is a label. So let me copy the label and change the div to label. I'll then copy the text over here and change B2 to name, and I do not want ID but I want to verify the text. So text is equal to name, and as you can see here it automatically points out to the div tag. Now I do not want a star, I would say it's a div, and inside the div I have an input. Here we go, and now you see that by giving the label value of name, it is now pointing to the text box of that particular name value. Now it is pretty much simple. Even if somebody does not know how to create XPaths, he or she simply has to copy the label name, paste it in your XPath, and there you go. The element is automatically found. Same way for any other element which might be present in your web page. So creating XPaths like this will really save your time, and that can easily be done by using a following sibling, preceding sibling. There are many examples which we have just seen. So guys, this is it. This marks the end of our 4-step program in learning XPaths from your basic to your very advanced level. And I think I've covered almost each and every minute topic there is to cover in XPaths. Now that said, going forward in the next tutorials, I will be compiling a list of those hard to get XPath elements, and I will be showing you how to get the XPaths for those elements as well. So in the meantime, if you all have any such elements which are difficult to find, such issues, you can comment below and maybe I will include that in the tutorials as well. Now, that said, if you have any questions in this entire four lecture series, you can comment below. I will help you out. If you like this entire series on XPath, do show your support by liking and sharing this video, and please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for your patience.